Hello, welcome back to AutMouse Labs. My name's Penny and I'm glad you're here. We're going to be continuing our series today on RPG Maker MZ coding and making plugins. Today what we're going to be doing is changing how the engine works without modifying the base engine code. So we're going to be aliasing. That's something I did cover in an earlier video. To make an alias, you essentially take the original code, put it in a separate file, assign that original code's function name to a new function, and then call the original code in the new function. That way, if another programmer wants to use that same function in their code, you don't mess it up for them and they don't mess it up for you. Let's walk through a practical example. Today what we're going to be doing is making a bonus applied to the critical hit chance via luck. The luck attribute does very little by default, so I like to give it a little bit more use. So if you have sort of a lucky thief type character, they have something a little bit more special and not what amounts to a dump stat. So I created a file called AML_LuckyCrit. The AML just means AutMouse Labs. That's just sort of my handle. You would use your own. I put in a sort of header with the name of the file, what it is. I have @targetmz, so the engine knows it's for MZ. The description that will appear in the editor's plugin manager or plugin window. Same for author, same for help. And it's all very short because it doesn't really do very much. Now I wanted this bonus to be equal to a percent that is the same as luck. So if you have 20 luck, we do a 20% bonus. I didn't want it to go over 20%. So that was my criteria. The first thing I needed to do was find how crits work in the base engine. So to do that, I didn't do anything fancy. What I did was I started in the core, which is one of the JS files. I hit Control F and I typed in crit. No results. Managers, there's 4 results, but if you notice, it's all part of the text manager. This is just labels that'll appear on the screen. Doesn't actually affect anything. Then I went to objects. I noticed 11. I clicked one and started clicking through. And what I found was on 1898, there was a function that appeared to determine what the critical was. And then just a little ways down on 1914, I determined that the result.critical is equal to math.random, which returns a number between 0 and 1. And if it's less than the item's critical chance, then it's a critical. So what I needed was to change this right here. So I copied it over, excuse me, I copied it over into my plugin and I created my alias. So the first thing I did, see if my AML objects already exist. If it does, it's going to use that. If not, it's going to create it. Then, since all of my plugins have that, the first plugin is going to create it, so the rest will just inherit from it. Then I created a new function called aml.itemCRI. This is equal to the original CRI function that we just looked at. Then I overrode or recreated the original function by typing its exact name, setting it to a function with its exact same arguments, in this case just target, and then I told it to run my alias by calling .call this and the arguments. So it's running the original function. That way, the original function runs. If anybody else does the same thing, the original function will run first. Nothing will be broken. Everybody could then have their own stuff that happens after safely. In my case, what happens after is almost the same as what it does by default. Because if we look at what it does by default, it returns this item.damage.critical, and it then computes that by determining the critical chance times 1 minus the target's critical evade, right? So if we had a 100 critical chance and there was a 5 critical evade, it would end up with a 0.95, so a 95% chance, right? So that's what I need to modify. So that's exactly what I did. Math.min chooses the smaller of 2 numbers. What are the 2 numbers? Well, I wanted the attacker's luck divided by 100. So if it's 21, that would be 0.21 or 21% with it, or 0.20, which is 20%. So if it's 0.19 versus 20, it's going to be 0.19, or 19% versus 20%. If it's 21 versus 20, it's going to be 20%, so it'll never go over that. And then it still checks the critical evade so that that still counts. All right, there's my modification. That's all there is to it. You could combine this with several different pieces of the base code to create really complex plugins. An example would be a steel system plugin. I built one once before, but I made some mistakes and I'm thinking of redoing it. If walking through a steel system plugin or a complex plugin that uses several parts of the engine would be useful to your learning, let me know in the comments and I'd be happy to sort of build that publicly so that you can learn how it works. But either way, this is a real simple one that makes one change, but that's the building block of making as many changes to the engine as you want. Now, one other thing. Over in objects, I did add a line here temporarily called console.log, which logs to the console. This.item critical target. This is to test to make sure it's working, and I gave myself a remove reminder. So, to test it, what we're going to do is go to our class and change the luck at level 1 to 25. So if everything's working, that should apply a 20% bonus. And there's about a 4% bonus by default. So we should see about a 0.24 appear in the console anytime we attack. So let's take a look and see if that works. You can see our console right over here. And we see 0.24. 0.24 is a very good chance of being a critical, although not 100% of it. It's about a quarter. So we did 0.24 twice. Neither time actually resulted in a crit. All right, but we know it's working because of 0.24. If it was actually the 2.5, it would have been 0.29. If it wasn't working at all, it would have been 0.04. So we're going to go back to our luck. We're going to change it back to what it should be, which is 1. And we would expect about a 0.05, the 4 that's default right now, plus 0.01 from our luck, 1%. So let's take a look. Once again, we go into our battle, and we go ahead and hit the button, and there it is, a 5% chance, which did not result in a critical. And that is that. Once you've determined it works, you want to go clean your code up, or in this case, clean the original code up. So you're going to hit delete, you're going to save, oops, there we go. You're going to save, make sure you didn't make any changes you didn't mean to, like deleting the semicolon, and close that out, take a look at one more time at your plugin to make sure it's everything you want, and then you would just go turn it on. I know I've covered it in other ones, but real fast, obviously over here, you turn on the plugin, and there you see your author, your help description. I'm actually not seeing the DESC, so I must have mistyped something there, but there should be a small description right there. I'll have to look and add it. Let's actually see if we can just real quickly notice what we did wrong. We might be able to do it real fast. Let's take a look together, because debugging is part of it. At DSC, looking at my other one, at plugin DECSC. So there we go. That's what we did wrong. So, one more time. Yep, now it looks the same. We will go look. We'll hit cancel. We'll go back in here. And there it is. Applies a bonus to critical hit. So a little bit of debugging as a bonus. All right, I hope this was helpful. Please consider a like and subscribe if this is good content for you. Either way, I hope it was helpful, and happy coding. Take care.